Hello, my friends. I'm the Bald Guy, and these are Bald Guy Basics. Today, I have a video for you that is, I don't know if it will be useful for you, but it is very therapeutic for me. It is a lot of nostalgia, but I hope to make it practical as well. I've already done a video about starting your first toolbox. I was piddling in the shop, both inside and outdoors at our utility shed, and I found something that has been shelved by me many, many years ago. It is the first toolbox I remember. Let me latch this thing so I don't drop it. It is the toolbox I grew up with that my father had. Now, I was born in 1965, so my memories go back into the very late 60s and early 70s when I was a little fellow, and Dad would, he would fuss when we would use his tools and not put them back in his box. Excuse me. His entire tool chest, with a few odd items that would go into what we used to call the junk drawer at the end of the counter in the kitchen, but the entire collection of his tools fit inside the box. And this box is just under 13.5 inches. It's about 13 and 3/8 by just under 6.5. I guess if you count the lip of the box, it's at 6.5, and it's about 6 1/16 or so tall. We're talking shoebox sized here. So as I got this thing out, and it was really, in fact, it looks like a fishing toolbox, but as I cleaned it up, it was really dirty. I had it out in the building where the lawnmower is, and as the lawnmower comes in and out, it's always kicking up debris. And this thing was coated with dust and grime and yeah, a little rust. So I came in and wiped it off and found the name of it. It is a Union brand, U-N-I-O-N, Union Utility Chest. And you can still find these things on eBay in pretty good shape for 30 bucks, which I found interesting. But let's say you're building your first toolbox. Now, I did a video on toolbox choices, and I showed you stackable chest. I'm looking around here at each one because I have so many of them around here. Rolling carts and big units like the one that I use as a workstation. But is a box this size any good at all? Well, to answer that question, I went through my collection of tools and tried to find as many of the old tools that my father had, or in some cases, they are the tools my father-in-law had, because I got a number of his old tools after he became incapacitated. And I just want you to see how handy a box like this can be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to adjust the camera down so you can see more of this. And I'm going to open it and talk about some of these tools are not tools that you will need. Some of them are not going to be tools that you can even find, but most of them are the kind of tools that Dad was not a carpenter. Well, late in his life, he became a woodworker in retirement, but Dad worked at a newspaper. Dad was also a clergyman. So this was the emergency kit when something broke and something had to be fixed. If our bicycles needed working on, if Mama needed a curtain rod hung, everything he had, with the exception of power tools, fit inside this box. So I want to demonstrate for you today the kind of things that would have been in a box back in the day, and some of those you will not want to replicate, but it was really nostalgic for me to go back through this and to realize just how much you can put in a box like this, and I have room to spare. So give me a second to adjust my camera, and then we'll open the box and have a trip down memory lane for me. All right, I've got the camera a little lower, so you didn't need to see my face anyway. We're going to open our box, and I'll actually turn it here where you can get a look at it. You can see the top drawers here, the top containers, are not full at all, but there are a number of things here that, for one reason or another, I have just hung on to over the years. and some other things that I think are a good idea to keep. So not all of these are really old tools, but Dad always had a piece of wet rock in his toolbox. Now, I've done videos on sharpening. There are a lot of other options out there, but a wet rock, it may not be the best tool out there, but you can take it anywhere and you can sharpen pretty much anything with a blade on it, from a very fine knife to even an axe or a bigger implement. Here's something that doesn't matter to you, but this was a lead fishing weight, a big one. This is an ocean style weight. And this was one that was in this box 50 years ago. The interesting thing over the years is how many times I've used this for other things. It has, on the top of it there, it has a little eyelet that they dropped into the mold and then put the hot lead around it. By the way, you can't get these in lead anymore, but that's another story. But so many times, you know, when I was restringing a fishing reel, I would often, to get the old fishing string out, I'd often just tie the end of it and throw it across the yard because this was heavy enough to pull it out. And I've used it for a plumbing bob. There are so many uses for things like this. Having an ignition source in your toolbox. This is just an old-fashioned box of strike-on matches, wooden stick matches. Handy thing to have on there. You should always have some tape in a box. It's a great thing to have. Black electrical tape is, in many regards, it's more handy than a roll of duct tape. Duct tape is stronger. It is, you can do more things with it, but you can't put it in a box this size. Also, this is an old-fashioned, well, not an old-fashioned, this is a travel toothbrush. When you get into certain situations, much like this box, you open up something to work on, sometimes you'll deal with dust and debris. A toothbrush is one of the handiest things to have to clean up. Then you can wash it off, wipe it off, and it will store back in one of these small pouches here pretty easily. There's my top shelf. Now, there's one shelf here and then the bottom, and I want you to realize the amount of stuff that it is. First of all, this is a screwdriver that came out of this box many, many years ago. This was the old version of what I have here, a multi-use screwdriver. I only have the flathead bit, but when you unscrewed this thing back in the day, you pulled that off, pulled your back cap off. There's I don't know if that's sawdust or what, but you dropped your dust is getting me. You dropped your end down in there and it stayed in. Well, that one didn't stay in. That's probably what fell out. There's a hole in the end of our cap here. Back in the day, that hole has some kind of a plug that evidently has rotted away. But you would have a couple of bits in here for a flathead and a Phillips head. Today, I highly recommend these. These are just a universal screwdriver. This one is made by Endres Tools, E-N-D-E-R-E-S. A lot of people make them. They have flathead, 2 bits on one side, your Phillips head, 2 bits on the other, and you just flip them around to use the one that you want. So you can get an entire set of screwdrivers in your hand. I'll lay the stuff out here that I'm doing. A small pry bar is worth its weight in gold because you'll get into situations where you need to pry something up. Fits right in there. This is a modern set of what Dad had. Dad had an old set of vice grips, and it was kind of humorous because these were called the most dangerous pliers. They did more damage because you stripped off more bolts with these, and yet time and time and time again, you need these. Why? Because you had a little vise in your hand. You could clamp things together. Every toolbox, if you're limited on space, you should have a slip joint set of pliers. They are versatile, and because of that slip joint, I found the oldest ones in my collection that were small. I've got some old ones that are really big, but I can get a hold of something that's, you know, fairly wide there very easily. Now, my initial education was in electronics, and because of the kind of activities I've gotten involved in, sometimes working outside, I've stripped a drop cord or something, and I will just replace the plug on the end of it rather than buying a whole new drop cord. A set of pliers They have a cutter. They have your stripping guide here with the various sizes. You have a screw cutter and you have a crimper on the end of it. So a set of electrician's pliers are very handy. Now here is something I never use anymore, but I absolutely love it. Here is an old-fashioned socket set. It's SAE, starts at 5/8 and goes down to 7/16. But you notice, rather than a socket with a ratchet head, they all fit on, it's basically a big Allen wrench. You slide it over, and now you use it on this end, and it holds all of your sockets on the other end. That was Dad's, and it is one of the things that I have enjoyed holding on to, because there's a bit of ingenuity about that, and it takes up so little space. Now that takes care of our shelf, and you saw I had room for more stuff in here. Usually in the top of this thing, there would always be a collection of screws, bolts, and nuts, because you just run into that stuff. Now, you don't have everything with a set of pliers. This is not a set. I just scrounged everywhere I could to find these combination wrenches. And what I mean by that, they're boxed in wrenches, but they have two different sizes. So in my box, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I had 7, which gave me 14 sizes. So you can do these in metric and in the English, the SAE. And they don't take up much room. I also found a little Craftsman set for the really small stuff. I told you that my first education was in electronics, and it used to give me incredible joy to tear into an old radio or other piece of electronics. But often, if you didn't have these little small things, the small wrenches, you didn't get into them. Here's one of Dad's old items, the old foldable. It's not a yardstick, but we just called it a measure back in the day. But it's a ruler that goes up to 71 inches. So it works really great. Of course, in modern times, I put this in here for nostalgia. I just can't throw it away because it was Dad's. In modern times, you're going to put a tape measure, but that's not what we were about today. Here's a modern tool that is really handy if space is at a premium. I have so many more specialized tools that this may not be as handy, except when I travel. This is a multi-tool. Now the multi-tool pack, and I've lost several of them, has various bits here, including sockets, Phillips head, flat heads, and there's even a Torx head, Allen head, I should say. But it opens up, so now I have a set of needle nose pliers, complete with cutter, and in the handles, I have knives, screwdrivers, there's even a punch, a square driver. What is this one? That's a flathead. And over here on the other side, a saw blade. There's another knife. I'm going to put that down before I poke myself. There's a big knife with a clip blade. And it all fits into a nice compact package. So my criteria when I built this set is to make sure the box had to close without any problems. So that's where it was at. Here's another one of my old-timey possessions that I'm really proud of. And these are still not only useful, but you can still find these. I'm sure they make modern sets, but I've got 2 or 3 of these. One of them was my dad's, one of them was my uncle's, one of them was my wife's father's, and I think this was my father-in-law's. But here is a mini socket set, complete with extensions, a small ratchet drive, which really helps you with a lot of items that are not big. I'm gearing this box for people who are not mechanics. You're not working on tractors and that kind of thing. You're working on things inside the houses. Cabinet doors, hinges, water pipe clamps, and those kind of things. A set like that, very handy. It doesn't take up much space. Here's Dad, still had his initials on the box, but this was one of my dad's little boxes, and all it is a little box to have drill bits. I told you I didn't put power tools in here. Somewhere you probably have an electric or battery operated drill. You need some drill bits, and if you want to be able to use them, you've got to be able to find them, and that's why you have a toolbox. So we always have a little set of drill bits in there. And in my electronics days, these were handy. I put this in here out of nostalgia, but this is a set of jeweler's screwdrivers. And that's for those little items that have those tiny fasteners, flat heads and Phillips heads. And strangely enough, it's not often that I use these, but I still find them very useful. Husbands, I'll give you a heads up. If you have a wife who wears fine jewelry, and what I mean by fine, those little thin necklaces, I bet she gets them tangled. And I bet when she gets them tangled, she asks somebody to come untangle them. In fact, I have that assignment awaiting me upstairs. Because the end of these are so small, they work really well to worm their way into those little tangles, as well as you know, today we have like the smart watches, and sometimes the smart watches, the band is attached with small fasteners. And there are other applications where you have really small fasteners. It's a little set that we always had in there. Always have something to cut with. Now this is a utility knife from back in the day. If you see in the handle here, there is an Allen set screw. And if you pull that out, what you have here is just a piece of almost 1 inch wide steel that you grind down to make your edge. So the blade is the full length of this thing, and because this is heavy steel, it's not like a razor blade. It's much heavier. This is a blade that you can use for years and years and years. You can change the angle of the blade as suits you, and of course I made a leather sheath because I like a pretty sharp point. And also, you should always have a hammer. Now, if you are a person, whether you're a homeowner or you rent, you're in an apartment, a townhouse, it doesn't matter. You're not framing up a wall. If you're doing that kind of work with a 16-penny nail or even bigger, you need a full-size hammer. But for around the house, the little things that you might need to apply a hammer to, one of these miniature-sized hammers, it's about, I guess about half size, works great. And again, it fits so well. So with no particular, a little guidance here, but I just start throwing this stuff in here. I'm trying to remember what's in the bottom and what's in the top. These wrenches are in the bottom. These wrenches are in the bottom. And my screwdriver. And I just close it up. Hey, it closes no problem. Pliers, power bar, take advantage of the curvature where it will fit right in there, and screwdriver, and my socket, Allen wrench sockets. And I never took the stuff out of the top. And that quickly, you have a toolbox that is filled with useful items that will do 80–90% of what you need around the house. And you know, when you get to needing more tools than that, then you go to one of these bigger boxes. But this literally served my father for years and years and years, until it was actually when he retired that the kids are grown and we started giving him tools to do the jobs Mom wanted, as she was doing minor remodeling things around the house. And then he started building bird houses, and then that progressed to make a lot finer items. He's made me a piano stool bench. He's made bread boxes. You can't see it, but over there he made a grill cart. This thing stands, 3 feet high, double doors and a top with a cutting board that slides out. So he got into doing really nice work. That's when he needed more space to store his tools. But for around the house maintenance, around the house repairs, a box like this will go much farther than the big box stores would like you to believe. They'd much rather sell you a much bigger box. But if tools are your focus, not hobbies and all these other things, you can put a very nice set of tools in the size of a big shoebox and do just fine. I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. Now I got to figure out where I got all these tools, because I got them from a number of places and put them back. But it was nice to revisit that, and especially enjoyed just wiping down the top plate here where the handle is connected and seeing the old brand name, and it just brought back a lot of memories. And it's really interesting to me, with all of our modern advances, I see toolboxes for sale on the used market quite often, and people say, still very serviceable box, and they'll slide those drawers out, and you'll see the slides are damaged or broken, and the drawers are sagging. And this box, apart from the dirt and a little bit of rust, is as solid as it ever was. It opens as simply as it ever did. If I were to go back and oil it, and I could scrub some more rust off, but I kind of like, we call this patina today, so I like having the patina, but it's a really nice box in terms of its convenience and the amount that it will hold. And although it looks like a tackle box, it was actually just a utility box from, I guess, probably Mom and Dad married in the late 40s, so he probably picked this up sometime in the 1950s. And here we are in 2023. So this box is 60, 70 years old, maybe more. But that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you'll hit the subscribe button. I hope you'll hit the like button, the notification button. That will allow you to see when the next ones come out. If you enjoy these, please share them with other folks. That helps grow the channel. You can also find these videos at my Facebook page, which is Bald Guy Basics on the Facebook platform. And always enjoy feedback, so if you have any comments, observations, or suggestions, feel free to share them. If you have criticisms, guess what? I don't take it personally, and I tell people all the time, a critic, to me, is just another form of a volunteer. If you don't like what I'm doing, do it yourself, and you can do it better. I hope that you are having a great day. I am the Bald Guy. See you later.